What's up, summoners? Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about the balance patch that Smilegate just dropped that is going to be going live in about 2 weeks. We're going to talk about what heroes got buffed, what did they get buffed, what units you have to watch out for, are they much better now, is the meta going to change a lot, as well as what units did they miss, and my overall thoughts on the patch, because this patch is actually going to be a very small patch. So if you do like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server, link down in the description. Without further ado, let's actually get to this patch notes. Starting with just first the balance patch as a whole, it is going to be a smaller than average balance patch. The reason most likely being it's that it's coming out right before RTA season end. RTA season ends 2 weeks after this, and most likely, and that's a time that most people are going to be playing a lot. So most likely Smilegate didn't want to make something that was just going to absolutely break the game right before RTA season ended, which is why they kept the balance patch decently small. We have seen pretty small ones, although this one particularly feels really, really small. I don't know if it's the small ones ever, because we've definitely gotten small ones in the past. But it's a small one, right? And it's most likely because RTA season is changing here. As far as the units that got buffed, right? It doesn't matter the size, it matters the impactfulness, right? Although there's a lot of units that need buffs, which it kind of sucks because there's so many units that need buffs that I would like to have seen a bigger patch, even if it may have messed up with some RTA things. But as far as the units that actually got buffed, there's a lot of units that actually needed the buffs. Things like Mediator Kawerik, he's actually really meta right now. He's one of the units that really needed a buff for the MO 5 stars. Ida, another unit that really needed a buff. Yufine needed a buff as well, though I don't think the buff really does much for her. Blair Karin, really good bruiser option now. Actually looks really spicy and did need a buff as well. And Zealot Cami, which is a PvE option, which honestly I would have preferred to see one of them. But all the units definitely needed the buffs, and they did a decent job with most of them. With Mediator Kawerik and Ida arguably being the best buffs that they did and actually being impactful. But they also missed a lot of units. There are a lot of units that are not good. And one of the biggest ones that they missed is Judge freaking Kise, bro. Because Judge Kise did not get a rerun banner. She's the first unit out of the 5 RTA seasons now, or 4? I think it's 5. Yeah, she's the first unit out of 5 RTA seasons to not get a rerun banner before the RTA season ends. And she's the unit getting the skin, and she's in an absolute horrible state right now. So it just makes it feel like cheap, you know, because what's the point of climbing to get a skin on a unit that's not even going to see that much play, that you can't even get access to, right? It just feels very like weird, right? Why are they doing that? It's just legit eye candy at this point, right? There's no functional use for it. Not something like FCC, you know, Stenet, that see a bunch of play where the skin feels really awesome, right? You have someone, even something like wow, really great skin, or even Faithless Lytic. At the time she was very meta and she got a rerun. Judge Kise not here, she's not good, and honestly it's just like, why is she not on this patch, right? Or when why she didn't get a rerun. It just makes it feel like Smilegate really doesn't care about her, and it makes no sense why they picked her for the skin either, right? It just makes no sense with all of this why she was even chosen for this. But that aside, other units that also were not here were things like Cess, which people have been wanting for a very long time. Solitaria, which is a unit that is 1 buff away from being very strong, as well as a lot of other just 5-star units that are just bad, right? Like Alencia is another unit that really needed a buff to actually be relevant in the meta. Lilibet, you know, there's so many units that needed buffs, and this patch is just very, very small. But the units that did get buffs are going to be pretty good. As far as artifacts, Black Hand of Goddess recently got a buff and is getting buffed again, which is very interesting why they keep buffing this artifact. And it was already pretty good at what it did, but now it's just better at what it does. And Shepherd of Chaos, I'm actually a big fan of, because it's a free star artifact. It's a free artifact, right? People, you can actually get this for free, and it's going to be actually pretty spicy on one of the units that they buff, being Blair Karin. So that part is going to be really nice. So as far as the patch, I think it was a little too small because of how many units in the game are bad. That if this is what, like, yes, I know the next patch would likely be much bigger, but this is a very, very small patch. I mean, this is 5 units. And I get that they don't want to mess with the RTA season too much, but that just means that there's going to be units that are going to be bad for a very long time, right? So I get it, but at the same time, man, it's just really small, right? It's a very, very small patch. But now, as far as the actual units getting the buffs and what to watch out for, right? Let's actually see if they did a good job. Mediator Kawerik, amazing job. Actually, really, really good buff. It targets the meta right now, being Angel Light Angelica. It gives her a massive check. The only problem is that she's going to be a Moonlight 5-star counter to Angel Light Angelica. But aside from that, they did a really good job about giving him a role and actually make him a really good meta counter, right? So they actually made him a viable unit, which I like, right? Without taking him out of what he's supposed to do. So first buff is going to be DS1 buff. He gets increased combat readiness on himself as well as the ally. Why is this big? Well, Mediator Kawerik is a unit that is basically a walking S3, right? His whole kit revolves around the S3 because the S3 is one of the best S3s in the game. So him getting more CR push means that he can get more cycling, means that he can get to his S3 faster, right? His critical S3 skill. That is pretty good. No healing, not a lot of support added, just, you know, nice cycling. The second one is going to be the S2, which this skill sucked. Like, this skill was actually terrible. But it's actually much better of a skill now. First, because it dispels all buffs before actually applying the attack break. And the other thing is going to be that the damage is increased as well as the barrier strength. The damage, assuming it's not something insane, it's not that big of a deal. Kawerik is not really there to do damage, but having a little bit of poke is always nice on your units because you win the game by doing damage, right? So the more poke you can do against a unit, potentially executing a unit, it's really nice. We all know when Ruel bullets finish off a unit because Ruel has nutty S1 scaling, and we do know Ruel's bullets definitely help out. So this doing a little bit of damage is nice. The dispel buffs is big, mainly because it's good against DPS type units, particularly someone like Charlotte or even Rem, right? This is actually a really good call because both those units are units that don't have much ER, and now you're actually able to strip their immunity and apply attack break, which is very impactful, right? That is very good against those DPS type units, taking away that immunity advantage, taking away their buffs, and for something like Charlotte, taking attack buff away and defense buff away and then putting an attack break, that could go a long way to winning you the fight, right? It makes him a lot better as a disruptor support unit, which I like. And then the barrier strength, if it's a big increase, like 5%, can be pretty annoying, right? Especially because he gets more cycling on the S1 and the S3, which we haven't talked about, which means that he can protect the team much better and make sure your team's still healthy and alive. And then we have the S3, which just makes him a crazy good anti-control and an insane answer to Angel at Angelica. This essentially, it's again, Control will always suffer for the sins of their broken units because Control is not going to be able to deal with this guy quite easily, if at all, except Control Cleave, because of the passive. So let's actually read what he gets. First, increases combat readiness of the caster by 50%. This is a lot better than you may think. The big reason being he can get to this S2 quicker. This will allow him to do his S3 and cycle before Rem takes a turn and apply the decreased defense to Rem before Rem even takes her turn. That's pretty big, right? The other thing is that this will actually make it so you can go before the opponent gets their second rotation, which means that you can S3, set up your buffs, go before your allies, and then set up a barrier before your opponents take their second turn rotation. This is also really good for things like Landy because you're able to set up the barrier for Landy, which means that Landy is able to keep her stealth easier, right? If Landy procs Guiding Light, you're able to cycle right after her and then be able to apply that barriers to make sure that the Guiding Light is not easily taking off. That's pretty impactful, right? It gives him more cycling. It lets him get to S2 quicker. It lets him get to S3 quicker. And he already has cycling on the S1. That's really nice. The second part is going to be this second part of the skill, which is what's going to make him an insane control counter. For all intents and purposes, this is essentially a self-cleanse into S3. Functionally. Yes, there are a few units that can stop this. One being Wanda and Broman, because Broman applies silence for 2 turns. Wanda has a 2-turn stun, right? Yes, I understand those units can actually CC him down, but all the meta ones don't. Angel and Angelica is only a silence for 1 turn. With Angel and Angelica, silence for 1 turn, this will cleanse that silence. A stun from Fairy Tail Tenebria Abyssal Crown, this is going to get cleansed. The provoke from Fairy Tail Tenebria, this is getting cleansed, right? So both Fairy Tail Tenebria and Angel and Angelica essentially can't do anything against him. He's guaranteed to cleanse the silence and the stun because it's a reduction in the buff duration, unless you're somehow able to decrease the cooldown, right? Which you're most likely not because he's still going to have decent ER, right? So that's very impactful. Essentially a free cleanse for your team, and there's nothing the opponent can really do realistically. Which means that you're getting a guaranteed S3 right after to cleanse all debuffs on all allies and get immunity and attack buff, essentially completely cutting off Angel and Angelica and completely cutting off Fairy Tail Tenebria, right? Huge buff. It honestly makes him the premier counter to Angel and Angelica and Fairy Tail Tenebria. And for all Control, right? Control cannot deal with this reliably, right? You can't CC him down. He's guaranteed to get that cleanse, right? Unless you're playing Wanda or Broman. That's it. Those are the 2 only units that can actually get around this, right? And this also serves to make his build paths easier. Because right now, people were building him like 280, even 300 effect resistance, right? Because they needed to resist the Fairy Tail Tenebria. Well, now you don't really care about if Fairy Tail Tenebria hits you or if Angel and Angelica hits you, right? All you have to dodge is things like Ran that can apply decreased defense, right? Because that's it, right? If you can resist Ran and some other like things like Summer Iceria, you're fine, which allows you to build more bulk, more speed, and just be more annoying in the fight, right? Huge buff. This is actually probably the biggest buff on this patch. This will absolutely make him meta, and it will make Angel and Angelica significantly weaker. I don't think Angel and Angelica will be completely gone because Angel and Angelica still has a team around her, and you can still cleave with her. You can still stop cleave with Angel and Angelica, right? She's not completely out of the meta. But it does definitely help for Arena, for sure. Arena, if you have an Emerald Kawerik, you're chilling in Arena, dude. If you have an Emerald Kawerik in Arena, you're actually just chilling. Like, those defenses with AOL, free. Actually free. You can do whatever team you want and just completely cleanse off of it, and there's nothing that the opponent can do to try to CC you, right? They would have to one-shot you, and not a lot of things one-shot in this game, right? But just incredibly powerful. This also just kills Cerise, Guild Wars, because it's just so reliable, dude. Granted, not a lot of people have him, so he's going to be very premier, but it's just disgustingly powerful with this unit for anti-control. Definitely going to be meta. The second one is going to be Ida, who is also another unit that got massive buffs and is going to be amazing for control cleave and just cleave in general, right? And control cleave is still valuable because control cleave can actually kill Emerald Kawerik. That's the one thing that he suffers. He has to take the turn to cleanse, essentially. Which means that if you're able to kill the team before, then you win, right? So Ida, first, the S1, it's a very nice quality of life change. Unhealable for one turn is kind of trash. Decreased defense for one turn is a little bit more impactful. It can have a bigger swing, right? If this actually hits and you kill right after, that's a big deal, right? The big one's going to actually be to her S2. It can now strip 2 buffs, which means you can actually hit through FCC teams because you're able to strip the immunity as well as the barrier on FCC, which is one of Ida's biggest weaknesses, right? It was that she couldn't strip FCC teams, right? She was pretty useless. But now you're actually able to strip, and you're able to push back 15 to 40%. The other thing that they added is going to be the Soulburn now gives her an extra turn, which kind of does take away the fun part that she used to have where she could spam S2. But this just makes her much better because she is a mage. Assuming there's no Belian on the board to cut your souls, this means that you're able to get an extra turn now, right? Which means you're able to set up, not only you're able to strip the opponent and push them back and get skill nullifier, by the way, so you don't die. So you get a little bit of survivability. You're also able to follow up with an S3 and potentially stun the enemy, right? And CR push for your team. So you're able to do everything you could before, and that's honestly what she needed in the first place. And it makes her a much better support type unit, and it also makes her really spicy with a lot of different teams. I'll talk about it in a second. But the second part is going to be the S3. The first part is she increases the combat readiness of all allies by 20%. That's really good for cleave because it's a guaranteed CR push. But the other part that's going to make her really spicy is that when an ally uses a non-attack skill, you increase the combat readiness of the caster by 20%. Why do I say this is a big deal? Because we recently got a unit, quote, Ran, right? The unit that we just literally got yesterday, that uses a non-attack skill that doesn't CR push. Well, now you can pair her with Ran. Ran can open up, decrease defense everyone, right? Strip, and use the non-attack skill. And now Ida gets a 20% CR push and gets to CR push the rest of the team up and gets to push you back and stun you. This is like a straight buff to Ran. The other thing is to Summarize Seria. They go very well together because Summarize Seria now gets a unit that can easily CR push. And even if there's a Belian, right? Let's say there's a Belian on the board. That doesn't matter too much because even if Belion's on the board and you do S2 now, you do your S2, you push them back, you strip, you set up for Summarize Seria. Summarize Seria uses a non-attack skill, which means that you're getting a combat readiness increase, right? So you're able to cycle and you get that 20% as well as the 50% that Summarize Seria gives, and you just push them back, which potentially allows you to cycle right after. You stun with Summarize Seria, and then by the time they're waking up for their next turn, Ida takes her turn, stuns them again, right? That's so good. That's so cool, right? So Summarize Seria, Ran, and Ida looks like it's going to be the future of Cleave because of how good and versatile they can be. Yes, she loses to Belian. Yes, she loses to Pleiades potentially because you cut kind of like the support units for her. Yes, she loses to Violet because Violet will counter on her. But she can actually survive Violet for a couple turns, and Summarize Seria does cover that weakness, right? So, could be pretty spicy, right? It opens up a lot of avenues for a lot more team compositions, and just overall just makes her a much more like cohesive unit. Actually, a pretty decent unit after this buff, honestly. And they took off the crit rate reliance, which allows you to actually build her very fast or just very high effectiveness, right? You don't have to crit anymore, which is nice. You don't have to crit. It's just a straight 20%. They took off that reliance, which is really, really great, right? Took away some of the uniqueness, but definitely made her a better unit overall. Then we have Yufine. Honestly, this buff is honestly not that great. It doesn't really do anything. Okay, like, yes, you get increased effectiveness. You get that increased effectiveness buff. And you get an extra turn still from the Soulburn. But, like, that's it, right? That's just, like, it doesn't really do anything, right? It doesn't fix her problems, right? She still has no sustain. She has still no skill nullifier, right? She has no way to survive till turn 2, right? She's attached to soul burns, right? She's still good at what she used to be. It's just now you get a little bit extra effectiveness added onto her kit. I guess for PvE, it's nice because you can actually land decrease defense more reliably. So for PvE, this is great, right? So for things like Water Expedition, yeah, you can now set up decrease defense much better, right? That's great. That's fine. Great for Yufine. I'm proud of. I'm happy for her. She can actually like do more and decrease defense more reliably. That's great for her. Awesome. Doesn't do anything for PvP wise. PvE wise, there's already things like Ram, who also decrease defense and already just does more damage than her. But again, you know, she's on the patch. I don't think it's that crazy. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, if you think this is like the craziest buff you've ever seen in your life. But again, it's just her kit and the turn cooldown. Again, it's nice because it just lets her be more annoying, right? And like stick to the board for longer or be better at PvE because you're doing more damage, right? Just naturally. So again, nothing crazy, just a turn on reduction and you get effectiveness buff. Honestly, I don't think it's gonna be enough to really make anything that much actual. But now we move on to Bloodblade Karin, which is going to be the spicy pick for Cleave and for Bruisers, but I think for Bruisers more than for Cleave. So as far as Bloodblade Karin, so what makes her really, really strong now? So first, they took off the S1 CR condition and split it up. So now you don't have to kill for CR gain. Why is this good? It lets her cycle, and every time you have a unit that can cycle better, you potentially start looking at counter set being really good on her, as well as also making it so she doesn't have to kill to actually get advantage, right? She can just naturally cycle better, which makes her quote-unquote faster in the draft. Now, as far as the other part, it's a little bit cheese, but it's getting mortality for the caster for 1 turn at the start of the battle. This is for like glass cannon Bloodblade Karins. Like you're talking like 0 everything. There's super high damage Bloodblade Karin. You can't kill her turn 1 unless you strip, and there are a lot of strips in this game. Ram strips, Angel of Light strips, F10A strips. Granted, both those units have massive checks right now. Who else strips early on? Cerise strips. There's a lot of strippers. Let's just put that into perspective. There's a lot of units that strip. Strassi strips. But there's a lot of units that actually strip in today's day and age. So getting this, I mean, I'm sure someone's going to use it for cleaving because you can't kill her turn 1. Right? That's cool. That's fine. That's dandy. It would have been really cool to see it at the time of death, like a K run, but that may have made it too strong. So I understand why they didn't do that. It's whatever. That's not the reason why she's going to be better. The other part is going to be she gets attack buff. Again, another weird one because this attack buff is going to be happening after US 3, not before US 3. Right? So it's kind of like a little odd because usually you would want the attack buff before you attack. But again, I think they just didn't want to make her too strong. So they just gave her after and let her be able to S1 afterwards. Another part, of course, if it kills, you get extra skill, right? You get an extra turn. But the other part that's really cool, that actually going to be relevant, is this part. In today's day and age, Violet and Rem are everywhere. Same as Belian. There's a lot of really nasty, big AoE counterattack units. And not triggering a counterattack goes a long way for both cleaving and for bruising, right? So this is really nice. I mean, this one's really nice for bruiser. This one's really nice for bruisering, right? Because you can actually potentially hit Violets and kill Violets. And of course, the attack buff also makes it a little bit more self-sustaining, as well as taking out the reliance on something like Moonlight Dreamblade, right? Although it is a little weird that the attack buff is after the attack. But again, it makes it significantly better. The artifact buff to the Shepherd of Chaos is what actually is going to make her significantly better, though. Because Shepherd of Chaos and Bloodblade Karin actually look quite annoying together now. But now, Zealot Cami, I'm not going to spend too much time on this unit. She basically just got, more generalized PvE gain. She's not a PvP unit, which is fine. PvE units are always great. They took out the reliance that she needed to be against Earth Elemental heroes, which essentially means that she can actually be used in more than just Golem. So again, it's kind of a cool little buff. I'm sure they're doing this for a reason. Like, there has to be a reason why they took away that reliance on attacking Earth. I imagine they're going to bring out some PvE content where she's going to be pretty good. As well as she's just good for people to actually have for some PvE content if they want her. But again, this part, you have a higher chance to increase effectiveness when you can actually land your debuffs. And again, they're taking off that reliance on Earth heroes. And you also are going to be getting, when buffs are successfully dispelled, you also get Camarines for the caster and ally. Again, could be nice for some PvE stuff. I'm not sure where, but it is nice that they're starting to buff units like this. But that is what it is. And then as far as Blacking of the Goddess, it recently got a buff. All they did was make the decay slower, which again, is just nice for like mages if they want to stick to the board longer. Although I can't think of any mage that would be used that doesn't just one shot, right? Because I know people use it for Talmud Luluka, people use it for Ludwig because of how raw of a stat game it is. It's a massive raw stat game. Like we're talking 48% in stats, right? That's crazy good. That is crazy good stat like increase. And that's a ridiculous stat increase, right? I'm not even gonna lie to you. That's an insane stat increase. But at the same time, I mean, the effect dropping quicker versus lower. I mean, it's usually you're already just blowing stuff up turn 1, and we don't really have a battle mage, quote unquote, that would actually benefit from this. But the other one that's actually a lot spicier is Shepherd of Chaos. They added just raw stats to it. This is really nice for BBK. It lets you survive longer, as well as it lets you not die and actually get to your passive, which again is pretty nice for BBK. It's a very nice quality of life buff to BBK. Actually makes your sing. But as far as the summary, I mean, it's a very small patch. I know I talked about it a lot, but the big one is going to be Emerald Kawerik and Hida. Mediator Kawerik, you're definitely going to be seeing. If you're someone that plays control, well, you just now got another massive counter. This guy just absolutely destroys control, right? Just very, very powerful against anti-control. Ida, really spicy option for cleave control and all that good stuff. Yufine, nice little quality of life change for PvE. Beloved Karin, a lot spicier. I definitely will be building her and trying her out after the buff comes out. And then Zealot Cami, I mean, it's just right. That's the summary in case you're curious on the summary. Very small patch though. A little disappointed because there's so many units that need buffs, dude. And I just feel like this is so few, and only 2 units realistically got like brought back essentially. Which I know for some people they like that because they rather prefer new units, but I mean, we're getting pretty power crept, and I would have liked to see more. That's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you'll enjoy, and I will see you next time. Peace.